Our team internally, the procurement wasn't broken, and everyone said, no, procurement is broken.
We know that we can do things differently because we did it during COVID.
I asked for something positive, didn't I? Hello everyone, my name is Paul Hemming. Mel is in the background laughing at me. I'm going to try and ignore her. It's great that you're all here. So if you don't know me, I'm a former QS, co-founder of Sealing with my good mate Chris Barber, and host of the Own the Build podcast. And we are coming up to episode 250, and this is our first live show. So thank you very much for coming. Great to see some familiar faces, great to see some new faces. I am going to read this because I've got a 4-month-old baby who's keeping me awake all the time, so my prep was limited. So, as with all the episodes, all of these good people have been on the show before, and it's going to be an open-minded conversation about how we can make construction better. It is about procurement because I am a sad man and I like to talk about procurement and how we can do things better. And at the end, there will be a Q&A. So everyone is invited to have a question except for Mel, who is gagged for the night. So what is the topic? The topic is procurement. We build great buildings in construction, right? And we often say when we're talking to clients at Sealing that procurement isn't broken, right? Because we do all of these great things, we build these great buildings, but it could be a lot better. And I put out the statement to our team internally that procurement wasn't broken, and everyone said, no, procurement is broken. Billions of pounds of procurement is done on emails, spreadsheets, subby relationships with main contractors, which we're going to get into, aren't always in the best place, and margins are not great in construction, right? So what we're trying to do is just create an environment with the podcast where everyone is getting better, and today we're going to talk about procurement, and I am now going to sit down and I am going to introduce the panel, and we've got to hope that there's going to be no feedback when you turn on your mic. So we've got Mike Wharton, who is MD of Complete Roofing Systems. CEO, sorry. How far into the show are we? Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Mike Wharton, Assistant Quantity Surveyor at Complete Roofing Systems. £25 million roofing contractor. We've got Sarah Fox. Oh, I'm just worried I'm going to ruin this for everyone now. Great legal mind, legal consultant, and always on the show. We love Sarah. We've got Kelvin Maye, Group Commercial Director at Guildmore, £100 million main contractor. And then we've got Chris. My good mate, Chris. So, what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to start, well, I guess I made the statement that I think procurement is broken. Does anybody, by show of hands, agree with that? Do you think procurement is broken, or do you think we're in a good space with procurement? If you think that construction is in a good space with procurement, keep your hands lowered. If you think that construction procurement could be better, please raise your hands. Don't be shy. It's a surprising amount given the topic was advertised. So there you go. Okay, so before we get started, I think we're all kind of relatively aligned with where construction procurement is at. I want to start with a little bit of positivity today. Before we get into where things could be better, it's what is working well today in tendering and procurement. And I thought there was no better man to ask first and foremost than Assistant Quantity Surveyor, Mike Wharton. So all jokes aside, Mike, so we talked on the podcast about how frustrated at times you were being procured by main contractors in a certain fashion. But just tell me what you think is good about the way that procurement works currently.
I don't think there's a great amount in terms of main contractor, particularly lower down the tiers, that's great. I think that there remains a lot of issues with it. I think what's working well are relationships where the specialist is working to the best of their ability in terms of dealing with the contract and the pricing elements. In other words, there are too many specialists that moan and groan about main contractors. We're not getting paid. The contract's this, the contract's that. Don't fucking sign up to it then. Don't sign it.
Mike did ask if he could swear.
I did.
And it took him, 10 seconds? And that isn't the worst thing he said to me already today.
No, I've only been here 5 minutes. So, yeah, don't sign it. So what works, and you don't see a lot of this on social media. You see a lot of people whinging and griping, but you don't see a lot of people saying everything's fine for us because if your commercial process is correct, if your estimating process is right, if you're reviewing those estimates before they go, and you are working as a genuine team and fielding queries, there isn't actually a lot of reasons why you shouldn't have a great project. But the issue becomes time. And it's again and again and again. You know, we see projects, new build, that are in design for 2 years, 3 years, even longer sometimes. They then get mired in planning for a year or two. Then there's a competition for a main contractor, and then we get 2 weeks to price the thing. When actually the specialists are the people that are going to build it. So why aren't you engaging with the specialist right at the beginning when Mr. Fancy Architect is thinking, I'm going to win an award? I'm going to, sorry. I swear a lot.
I asked for something positive, didn't I?
I know, I went straight into it. What can I say? It gets the specialist involved early, and that works. There you go. How's that?
Yeah, okay.
The earlier the specialist gets involved, the simpler the process is, because this dreadful term value engineering that we're all so familiar with, we can provide that at the beginning. We can say, don't design a curved piece of glass there, you moron, because the roof will need to be like that, and it'll cost you £1 million. So that's what's good, is where we get to engage early.
Okay. No, that's good and positive. And Sarah, I'm going to come back to you on contracts, but I'm just going to jump to you, Kelvin, because on the topic of early engagement, I think something that is good, and I said this to you when you were on the show before, was the supply chain day that you guys did, and you talked a lot about partnering, early engagement, and you actually impressively took some questions from your subbies as to what could be better and how could things be different, and you kind of listened, which as a former subbie I was quite pleased to see. Just, I guess, how does what Mike has said make you feel?
Can you tell my wife that I listened for once, please, Paul, because
you listened to your subbies?
She'll never believe you. Look, thanks for inviting me on, and it was lovely to meet you, Mike, and Sarah, and Chris. It's really been a lovely evening so far. Look, early supplier engagement is not a new concept. You know, this has been banded around for a long, long time. We had the construction playbook, and then, which Sarah's laughing about, and then we had the Construction Leadership Council, who came out with trust and productivity. Clue is in the title on that one, by the way. It seems to get lost on a lot of people. But early supplier engagement is not a new concept. But construction, and I feel for Mike, I really, really do. Mike is a subcontractor. You'll know from my previous conversations with Paul on one of the podcasts that I don't like the term subcontractor. And I was saying this to you earlier, Mike, wasn't I? It has connotations of being, just beneath, okay? But early supplier engagement is not, how can I put it? It's a great concept, but everyone just looks after their own little patch.
It's almost just like a management line, which sounds really good, right? I always remember, so as a sub-E QS working for lots of the tier ones, you would see like plastered all over the site offices and their offices, collaboration, partnering, frameworks. And you would think, and you're sat in the meeting getting battered, and you're thinking, guys. So I think this is at the heart of the problem, right? And that's what we're trying to have, like a genuine conversation here, is that early collaboration, it like sounds great, doesn't it? But it isn't new. Like when I was at uni, it was one of the first things that you read in Procurement 101, right? It's early collaboration will do it, but we're not actually doing it. So like... Yeah,
there's a time constriction as well. I mean, look... Things are getting better. That was you wanted to open on a positive note, right?
Yeah, that's true. You've got me doing it now.
I read the memo you sent around, constructive tone required. And
no swearing.
And I'll finish on this point with this, that, okay, we have the Procurement Act. And the Procurement Act now, it instructs, an early visibility of what's coming down the line. So we as contractors, as main contractors, we can go online, we can sign up, we can put in our details, and we can get early visibility of what may be coming down the line. Because, for many, many years, you're in the dark, you're on various different portals, and you're just hoping that you'll spot something and you'll tender it. But it's like an oil tanker. It's moving so slowly, right? So we get a bit of visibility what's coming down the line. The councils and the HAs, as I understand it, they've got a bit more flexibility now, haven't they, to analyse their own tenders. But that also needs more governance then, because it's open to more flexibility and less impartiality. What does all of this mean for Mike? Nothing. Mike, you're still in the dark until you get a phone call from a quantity surveyor and he says, I've got a roofing package. It's going to start on site in 6 weeks or 4 weeks. I'm going to send you out the tender. You received the tender. You've got 400 drawings, okay, and only 30 of them have got to do with the roof. You've got a scope of works that is half written, and you've got stage 4 drawings at best. And you're expected to price all risk, lump sum, guaranteed maximum price. Do not darken my door ever again for a change. And that is fundamentally wrong. But where's that starting? That ripple effect must be starting somewhere. And it's starting with the employers and with the clients risk dumping downwards onto main contractors. Yeah. And until something changes fundamentally with the GLA and their funding downstream and how that is to be doled out, and maybe the new target cost contract from the JCT might help. Maybe. Sarah doesn't like JCT and I agree with her. But until something changes fundamentally from the government down, you'll always end up getting the risk dumped up on you, Mike. And I feel for you in that, I really do.
And you talk about risk dumping. Sarah, I'm going to ask you, I will come to you at some point, Chris. Maybe. Talking about risk dumping, and because I am a subby, so I don't know how to do this, but I would love if everyone in the industry just said to clients, we're no longer going to accept those contracts. And I know it's easier said than done, and it's far easier said than done, but the contracts, is there anything good that you can say about the legal parameters in which we're getting into contract and procuring? Anything, Sarah? I shouldn't have started off positive, should I?
I suppose the positive thing is more people are actually reading their contracts. So more subbies are actually more aware of what they're signing up to. And there are more industry bodies like the CLC saying, don't sign up to this stuff. It's risk dumping at the highest order. It's uninsurable. The FIS sector talking about responsible no. There's more groundswell, and Build UK had their list of things you shouldn't sign up to. So there is more training. There's more awareness of how shitty these contracts are, literally. And I think the other thing is more people are prepared to say no. But until we get enough people saying no, somebody else will just take on that work.
Do you think more people are willing to say no? Because I remember from our conversation, Mike, you said to me, you were saying that you were saying no on a specific tender or a specific contract, and the QS said to you, if you don't sign it, someone else will sign it. Yeah. And that's the mentality. So, I mean, you're saying no, but do you feel like more people are saying no? And more importantly, I only look at it from a subby perspective. At main contractor, at the level above, are we pushing back to the level which is reasonable? I'm guessing this is going to be a no.
You push back, but you don't get anywhere. And when we've had a tender come out recently, and your opening question was, what's good in procurement? I can tell you one of the big things that is changing, the qualitative and quantitative weighting of the tenders that are coming out for public works is shifting. We had one drop at the end of last week, which had a 40% weighting on cost. Okay? So that's indicative that it's no longer a race to the bottom culture. However, I read through the preliminary information for that particular tender, and it did say no derogations or amendments to our contract terms will be considered. Exactly. So you will actually, it went further, Paul. It specifically said that you will your tender will be struck out if you propose any amendments or derogations. And then, of course, I opened it up, and there was 40 odd pages of Trower's amendments to the JCT 2016, not to 2024. So, what was the question?
Have you got anything positive to say?
No, I'm blindly drunk. So yes, I do. Sorry. Yes, the positive thing is that there does seem to be a bit of a shift coming in reducing a race to the bottom. That's the positive takeaway. But when it comes to amends, it's still risk transference, risk dump.
Okay, and Chris, you are a positive man, so maybe we'll get some genuine positivity.
Scraping a barrel here.
Just like in terms of like you've been both a main and a subcontractor.
Yep.
What positive like cultural behaviours are you seeing, if any?
I think it was a discussion you and I were having not long ago, maybe last week, around a contract that you're speaking with, and they're seeing the cadence of two-stage happening more. And they were saying, look, we love this approach far better, going down the two-stage. It avoids that risk dumping. I'm not saying it's perfect two-stage, but yeah, they're seeing more two-stage come in, and they can, talk to that early contractor engagement, get people like Mike in early, get the assistant QS in, and get him into the project nice and early and collaborate. And I think it does lean into collaboration, if we were going to use that buzzword. So yeah, I think the two-stage approach for me, seeing more of it would be a big benefit to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, so for context for the room, we were with they're a fit out contractor, so it might be more symptomatic of fit out. But we were asking like whether it's single or two-stage tenders, and they were kind of saying about 3-4 years ago it was like 80% single, 20% two-stage, but like more and more it's now like 60 to 70% two-stage. And I was like, is that a good thing? And I said, of course it's a good thing, because you get all of that.
But Mike doesn't. Mike doesn't get the opportunity for two-stage PCSAs, do you? What's happening in your world? Is it lump sum all risk? I wouldn't like to hand you a lump sum contract, I'll be honest. I think it might come back at me pretty quickly.
It depends. That's not a wishy-washy answer deliberately, but what we do is, and what we have seen, and trying to get back to the positive theme, is that we have seen when we negotiate with main contractors a real willingness for the main contractor to listen. And that is a sea change from 5-6 years ago. So whereas we used to say, we are not signing up to that, and they would say, well, you sign up to it or you don't do the job, and we'll say, we're not doing the job. Simple as that.
But when are they saying that? Because in Kelvin's example, they're at tender stage, they are told you can't change this contract, etc., etc. By the time it gets to you, it's almost like at that point the main contractor says, someone will sign it.
No, it's not quite like that. If we get something in a tender pack and there's a contract in there like a JCT with 1,000 amendments, we'll look at it, and immediately what that does, we'll put a flag on our CRM system, which basically means this is going to be hard work, potentially. It's got a particular word on it. I don't say what the word is, but you get the idea. So what we do is we'll price it normally. We'll price in a whole pile of risk. So if the job is £1 million, we might go in at £1.5 million, which is not helping anybody. It's not helping. No. If it's government, it's not helping the taxpayer. It's not helping the main contractor. It helps nobody. But what choice do we have at that point? When we get the post-tender interview, and this has happened on Ministry of Defence work, we have a post-tender interview and they say, right, now you need to sign up to this contract like we said at tender stage, and we'll say, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Pardon?
So what do you mean? What do you mean you're not doing that? Well, all the materials when they land on site, they're yours, even if you've paid or not. That's not happening. And into all the other nonsensical clauses that these guys try to get away with. So we'll say, we might negotiate on certain bits, or they'll say, you've got 60 grand LADs a week. And we'll say, don't be ridiculous. It's a defence estate. Prove that you're going to lose money to the tune of, no, we've got site management there. Essentially, we're PC realistically. So get stuff with that. Obviously, a bit more professional than I'm putting across here, but there is a point where we say to them, and apart from Kelvin, are there any more main contractors in the room? Okay, one.
There's a couple more shy ones in the back.
I see. So what we will do with those guys? So write this down. We'll get them into what we call the golden hour. We will push that process so far along the line with contract amends and pricing changes that it gets the main contractor into a position where they have got no choice but to agree, because they cannot go with another contractor at that point, because the materials is on 12-week lead time, mobilization, specialist trades. If it's MOD, there's security clearances to get for people if you don't have those already. So we will get them to a point where it's tough shit, guys. You will either do this the way we want to do it within reason, or you won't. And you can't afford for us to walk away. And that sounds quite ruthless.
But that's the strategy.
But that is often the strategy with those times. And because we're multidisciplined, we do everything in roofing and cladding, there aren't that many other firms that can pick up all sorts of intersections of metal, felt, liquids, and all the rest of it. Oh, here we go. Go on. You're not a main contractor.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if it's not Q&A.
Oh, go for it.
Have you found using that attitude of like or lumber and the like power change, I guess, creates like a sort of negative relationship from the get-go throughout the contract?
No, we haven't. I'll give you a direct example. We were approached by a main contractor sort of January last year to price a big job for a luxury car maker. Interesting thing, styling studio, all very cool and all the rest. So of course we wanted it, but it was a very intricate job, so there weren't many firms that could do it. First job that we do when we get a new client that asks us for a tender is we credit check them. The credit was absolutely shocking. So we flag our CRM to say this is a difficult situation, and we are bigger than they are in revenue terms, and definitely in strength of balance sheet. So we check all that out before we put an estimator to price it. So we price it. They then say, right, okay, you're in the frame for this job. So we start to push, and then we say, and we can't get trade credit insurance on you. So we need to come up with a system where we're going to invest materials. You're going to pay for them in 7 days. We're going to put apps in every 14 days. These are our expectations. And that is a firm who respected the fact that we were quite tough with the contract. What they in turn did, as soon as payment was due, they didn't pay. They went 1 day past. And so we knew what was going on. So we then sent them a suspension notice, 7-day suspension. They then pay on day 6. And it's all very friendly. It's friendly on site. It's friendly in the office. But the job is operating within the parameters of the contract in a way that we wanted it to work. And in the end, the job was fine. It was friendly. And what I've found with that, certainly the discussions I've had with the clients that we've got, we see that certain more progressive main contractors see that approach as a far more of a leveling feeling. And they actually come to us earlier on and they treat us as equals, because we push back very hard on the master and servant approach. We just do not accept that. We were very tough. You know, we get a snotty email from a main contractor. We say, don't talk to us like that.
Yeah, no, this is just a main
That's
and
a good
subcontractor
question.
slanging match, isn't it?
No. I mean, I work with a lot of contractors with Mike and respect their honesty. But I think, how long have you been trading?
15 years.
So you're a well-seeded, you're probably lowly geared, or you may not have any debt yourself. You can pick and choose your clients. Probably have a lot of repeat clients, I would imagine, because you're good at what you do. So I think Mike can take that approach because, he has laid down his roots in his arena. But there will be other contractors, subcontractors who may not have reached that inflection point yet, their own growth.
May never reach it, right?
Yep. Exactly right. And they want to work, and they may come with a totally different psychology, if you want to, put it that way. And they may be more willing to be subservient, and they may be more willing to accept the terms and the piss poor treatment at times from contractors, and I really don't like this. I mean, look, obviously I've got a team of quantity surveyors that are fantastic, and we run coaching sessions in Guildmore, and, we talk internally, we discuss, how to engage with our contractors. I look at emails from people, and I go and I say, look, I saw that email. It was really quite sharp, right? You may not be the most eloquent person, but run it through Chat GPT, right? Run it through chat and just type soften. It helps, doesn't it, Mike? doesn't it? You know what it's like, you know. You know, I know you don't, but that's the point I wanted to make. So I think the approach of the dynamic between the subcontractor and the main contractor, and Sarah, you'll know all about this from litigation, is different depending on, I suppose, the level of need from each one.
But I would even say that listening to, the framing of the conversation is procurement broken? And listening to how you effectively, Mike, litigate the tender process, the payment process, and like you're managing it in a very effective way, but it feels like hard work, right? That this is the situation that the industry is in, that you have to fight and fight and fight. So my question to you, Sarah, is what contractually, like, how do you feel about Mike explaining that's his approach, and what could be different with contracts?
Well, I think the really important thing is that we have all these standard forms that are amended by lawyers who sit in their cozy little offices. They've been told to try and make the risk as favourable to their clients as possible, without any concept of what that means in practice for the whole sector and all the people who'll end up signing up to that. They put in loads of horrible clauses that they've seen in cases that have really screwed the sector, all this kind of shit. I've been there, I've done that. I hated it when I was doing it, and I don't think that's the right.
Did you ever write any bad clauses?
No, I took loads of them out because I didn't believe it was the right way to go forwards. And that didn't make me maybe very popular sometimes, but I did it because I thought we need everyone on this project to be working together, and screwing them is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
But you also find that they put really complicated processes in that don't meet anyone's needs. And I've done training for massive infrastructure companies and all this kind of stuff. And I say, okay, how much is a contractor owed on this example? And every single person in the room has a different view, which means there's no consistency. There's no understanding of what it means to run this contract in real life. Yeah. So the contracts aren't serving the sector at all. And the more lawyers can just keep their hands out of the pie, the better. We spend double the industry average in construction on legal fees. So there's something deeply wrong that we spend double any other sector on legal fees.
But what do you say, what's your advice to Kelvin on that tender where it's a job, I don't know if it's a job that you want, but it probably is a project that you want. You think, oh, that looks good. And it says, to even be involved, you have to accept carte blanche, everything that we've amended on this 40, 50-page contract. What do you do in that situation? Just not tender?
Well, you could choose not to tender. You can feedback that you won't tender on those terms, or you can actually read them and see whether they're reasonable. They almost certainly won't be. Yeah. But, there are more and more bodies like Network Rail who are looking at the cost of these horrific contracts. And it's true across other sectors. They're looking at the cost of negotiating, writing, the fallout on the project, and saying, actually, this isn't worth it. If we start closer to balanced, we actually get a better project.
Do you think because I often get to the point of despair on these podcasts when I speak to people talk about actually the gravity of the situation.
Will it happen before I die? I hope so.
What I guess I don't. What I struggle to see is in what's just been described. And Kelvin, you talk about the construction playbook, and scoring is changing in public contracts and X, Y, Z. And it's like tiny turns.
We've been tweaking at the seams since the Banwell report in '63, which, just for the record, I'm not old enough to have read. But we've been tweaking at the edges for years, and the government has constantly said we can make, we can have better value for money from the sector if we do X, Y, and Z, and none of it has actually made a fundamental enough difference.
So what will?
And enough people actually turning around and going, let's stop this. Yeah. Let's do things differently. We know that we can do things differently because we did it during COVID, where we basically said the contracts have no route map. Let's start based on relationships. And the government, in fact, had to serve their policy procurement notice saying, stop arguing like toddlers in the playground, put your big boy pants on and work together, you kids.
You're nodding along, Mike.
Yeah, I think I did.
One thing about what Sarah's saying is really interesting. And if we look back at the birth of the specialist sector, post-war, couple of guys got together, decided they were going to build roofs or brick walls or what have you. Then they disappeared because they couldn't be bothered, because the quality was crap in a lot of cases, because there was no qualifications. That was when retention was born. We don't want these guys doing that. As we go forward into where we are now, most specialist subcontractors, let's face it, are born from the tools. You have one person, two people get together. We're doing all right at this. Why are we lining Fred Bloggs' pockets when we could line our own? And those two people are often really good at the technical aspects of the job delivery, but they are fucking awful about everything else. Where
they can't do what you just described you were going to do through the tender and procurement process.
The commercial side, they don't have a clue. Insurance, trade credit insurance, what's that? HR, construction, hello.
What's that?
You know, cigarettes and hairy arse cracks and all the rest of it. And that's just the girls. So we're born into this industry where you've got people who are good at the doing and shit at the managing. And over a period of time, this isn't aimed at you, Kelvin, but you've got, well, a bit it is. You've got
you didn't sign up for this, did you, Kelvin?
You've got main contractors who will take advantage of that naivety of those people. Get them to do this. Oh, and yeah, if you just do this, we'll get you on that next massive job. That's the classic thing, isn't it? Just sort that problem out for us. It's only going to cost you 20 grand, and then you'll get this £1 million job. Fuck off.
I don't disagree with you at all. No, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'll pass Chris. But you asked a question of Sarah, Paul. You said, how can it be fixed? And I think you said, well, there needs to be a mass movement, I think was the overarching kind of point that you made. In the absence of that, I'm sitting here wondering, well, what could be changed? And for me, like, procurement there's 32 boroughs in London. Procurement is managed differently in every single borough, okay? Every single council manages their own framework in a different way, okay? It's all completely non-standardized procurement. If there came to be a motion from government that all public contracts, let's just say public for a moment, not private, that all public contracts had to be standardized across, they had to have the exact same terms, right? And they had to be fair terms and they couldn't be amended, okay? They had to have, speaking to my new friend Pete over there, let's say they have to have retention bank accounts or project bank accounts. Okay?
Don't get Chris started on project bank accounts.
Great idea, right? Especially for the recladding stuff, because the recladding stuff, it's all right getting paid from the councils, but I was speaking earlier to Pete, and you know, we've got some problems where our employers are actually block managers and they're drawing down money from the BSF, but that money, it can disappear. I don't know that anyone ever watched Father's Head. You know, that money was just resting in my account, right? That can happen. And so I think in the absence of people taking to the streets and rioting, which was your approach, Sarah, let's have it right. And that's exactly what you said. And we all heard you. I think it needs to be mandated from the top that there needs to be consistency in the frameworks. And
that's exactly what the playbook was meant to do. That's exactly what the playbook said. It said standardised contracts, fair risk transfer, project bank accounts when needed, all that kind of stuff. There was no money to change the way they currently procure, so they can't do it.
Do you remember I said I often feel quite bleak when having these conversations? Chris, I'm going to come to you because I just want to move it on to...
I was going to go up talk about project bank accounts.
We're not talking about project bank accounts, mate. Okay. You've had your moment. So just don't get him started, Kelvin. So there's lots of QSs in the room, and we've talked about, I can't remember which one of you touched on it, like the behaviours of QSs and so on and so forth. Just, you have been a sub-EQS and a main contract QS. What are, like, if we're going to have like a much better experience in 2026 with procurement, tendering, etc., what should both subby and main contract QSs be doing?
So I think main contract QSs should just issue a Dropbox link saying please price this tender and BCC in all the subbies. I'm serious. I had a conversation like that this week with a main contractor about 20 million, and I bit my tongue.
I
was like,
why?
Well, I couldn't rant at them. I felt like it. But Mike, how does that make you feel receiving a tender like that?
What do you write on the CRM when you receive a tender like that? What's the note?
It's hard to repeat what we say when we get something like that, because one, just to sort of pick it apart a bit, which I always do with things like this, Dropbox, it's not secure. So we work for Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Defence, DFE, and all the rest of it. We went out of our way to get ISO cybersecurity accreditation. We have penetration testing twice a year, both network and physical penetration testing, where we have 2 ex-special forces guys put high-vises on and try and get into our building, which is all good fun, by the way, until the staff realise that they've left like rubber ducks in handbags and stuff like that. So we see that and we just think, if your attitude, so number one, if your attitude to security is so shitty and poor using Dropbox, you can just piss off right now. 2, when we actually do have a brief look at it and we see that there's 600 documents and 20 gigs of drawings, just fuck off. We're not downloading that.
But so tell me what you want to receive from when you receive a tender. And so you've got on your CRM, we don't want to know what you say when you receive a tender like that. What's the tender that you receive, which is like ping, green, this is the great tender. What should a QS be sending you?
We'll get to QSs in a bit, but I know they're slightly delicate given the room's full of them, but in an ideal world, that starts with a relationship. It's not about, if we get something that lands cold, which happens a lot, if it's from a main contractor, number one, what makes us so special? And it's usually because they've fallen out with the supply chain or they're not paying the supply chain. There's usually a fundamental reason why they're widening the net, because if they're not using us already, particularly if they're in the Northwest, we probably don't want to work together for whatever reason. So the first call is, what makes us so special? This is fabulous. Fred Bloggs had priced the job at £1 million. It turns out the job is $1.5 million. He's pulled out. We're in the shit. Usual story. And we will look at that and think, can we rinse these idiots and, safely or not? We do.
You said in the memo, constructive tone.
But I did invite Mike, so.
But you made a fatal error there, I'd say. Conflict in the invitation and the memo. I just want to, Mike, you're right in everything that you're saying. I couldn't agree with you more, actually, in everything that you're saying. But what does good procurement look like? You just mentioned that you get a cold call and your initial reaction, you could be wildly wrong, but your initial reaction when you put down the phone is, when you receive the email is, I don't know who that person is. They must have fallen out with the contractor they're working with, right?
Not quite like that. I was just...
No, I'm with you. But what you're really, the subtext of what you're saying is that you want a tender to land post the relationship being generated. That's, I think...
You want a phone call at least.
Yeah, so relationship first, tender second, right? And then I look at the QSs and I think of how much work they're doing in building these tenders and pulling the drawings together, marking up drawings, marking up intersections, trying to get all the EORs together and get it out the door. And I think they haven't got time to go out and meet contractors. They just don't. And I think one of the things, because part of this talk tonight is about how AI can improve procurement, how AI can relieve the quantity surveyor of some administrative tasks, how AI can assist in maybe, how can AI help generate relationships? Well, here's a way. If we were able to reduce the noise around the QS, for example, if we were able to take away a lot of the administrative stuff, maybe they could get out and see and have a bite to eat with you. Maybe we could send out 6 or 7 expressions of interest on a roofing package for 4 or 5 million, and we could actually go and meet each one of the contractors that we've sent out the tender to.
Yeah.
So just to put a positive spin on a problem that is absolutely real, and not to in any way, shape or form take that away, but I think there is hope if we can just use AI, use C-Link, use tools to release the QS to actually build those relationships. So when it lands, you go, I know that fella actually. I'm sure I went to the football
Great
game or
plug
something.
for C-Link there, mate.
Did I?
Love that.
Yeah, it was very seamless, wasn't it? He did, yeah. So no, but that's my point. But then there's a fine line with regards to bribery and fraud and all that kind of stuff, because that's another thing. A lot of the archaic kind of approaches or antiquated approaches from main contractors is you have to distance yourself from people like Mike. Right, you know, if the subcontractor is going to the rugby with the, or if the QS is going to the rugby with the subcontractor, how many subcontractors have we got here tonight? Are we predominantly subcontractors? So you invite your QSs and the project managers and site managers. Presumably, you invite them to different events, or you ask them if they want tickets to something, or a couple of weeks in Marbella and all that kind of stuff, right? And there's a fine line, Mike, with building relationships and also holding that, not falling foul of the company's Anti-Bribery Act. Let's have it right, So it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one. Sure, would you like the mic?
The ceiling is a brilliant platform, and that's what I was talking to today, so it's really, really great. However, so what I get, because I do provide the estimation, quotes and everything, they use us as the pricer, because they have to produce to the developer 3 tenders, so, or whatever. And so that's even we are good. We don't get feedback whatsoever where we went wrong. We get price requests from the same people all the time, but never ever any feedback. I'm good at my job. I know what I'm doing, so therefore, tell me what I went wrong. Okay, I understand we might not be the cheapest because we're a small company, but also I know so that's when we work with people, they come back to us. But not to, if you send a tender request, please be kind to actually receive a phone call from me when I try to get the feedback.
I'd like to unpack that a little bit. So the people who won't answer your phone call or are a bit rude, they've probably gone out to 10 other contractors or subcontractors. And they're a bit like, I haven't got my time to waste.
Full pricing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to gain tenders, so there's
Yeah.
The
advice I used to give to Luke was, because Luke used to say, I've received this tender. I'd say, try and book a call with them or book a meeting. Just say you're in the area. Let's meet on site. Just if they won't meet you unless, if they're going to waste your time, they won't waste their time in meeting you, right? So if they meet you on site, it's a good indication. Or if they say, oh yeah, I'm free for a coffee, go meet, that is a good indicator that this could be a good client. And that's, for me, would be the indication to say, I'm going to price this or I'm not going to price it.
But you're stopping that, Mike, at source. No,
not quite true. So it's just to expand on that a bit more, if we get something that's completely cold, one of our business development team will speak to that person and they will ask them, if it's a main contractor, they'll say, is this something you're tendering for? Is it something you've won? Is it an existing client? In other words, is this a real thing for us? And they will start to build that relationship right there. I was jumping forward to the bit about what makes us special, because that is part of that conversation. It's a case, if you sent as a cold tender, the comms in those things is often very cold.
Yeah.
If it was warmer and invited, any queries, give us a shout, let's have a Teams. The communication in construction generally is absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
And yes, I completely get QSs are all busy, right? Commercial managers are busy. Yeah, it's a lot of phone calls. But why are you going to 10 subcontractors?
Yeah, you shouldn't be.
So one layer I would get rid of from main contractors, it's supply chain managers for a start. They can all just go and do something else. Because what supply chain managers are doing is blocking that whole thing. If you've got appropriate accreditation and demonstrable proof of competence, so construction line goal, safe contractor, whatever, the relevant other accreditations that prove competence, and you've got the background, why do you need someone managing that whole process? They're just not needed. So then they're going to the QSs and estimators. There's this whole level of banding of, okay, you're going to send, as a quote, fill out this PQQ first. Why are we doing that? We don't even know if we want to work with you yet. You've got a shitty credit rating. You've sent us a cold email about a project where you've sent 2 drawings and said, we just need a budget. Sorry, we're not your pricing department. Why are we putting 2 guys on this for a week if it's a big job for you to then not give us any feedback?
So what is going back to original question. What is a green light on your CRM? This is a tender that we want to open. This is a tender we want to work with. It's phone call, make you feel special.
Okay, hi, Mike. Heart.
No, but I mean,
I've never met anyone better looking than you.
Only for Guildmore, obviously.
Yeah. Can we please price this? By the way, if you don't want to, it's okay. Love you.
I'd be like, come on in.
you will price that. I'm pricing that.
So look, in all seriousness, there are some fabulous main contractors around. There definitely are. And firms that we enjoy working with and we've got great personal relationships with. But that's all about the relationship and how we work together rather than firing documents and firing contracts backwards and forwards. Where, we ask about the source of the inquiry. Where have you found us from? Have you found us through Google? Have you been on their website? Is it recommendation? We ask all that BD good stuff and start that stuff right there. But if we then get the feeling that we're just going to have our time wasted and we don't particularly want that as a client, we will either price it really high. Let's face it, all subbies do that. That's not a secret. We'll just think, nah, put £1 million on it and it's a £500,000 job. If they want us to do it, happy days. We'll take that. I could do with a new Ferrari, whatever. So that happens. But in the overall scheme of things, we want to work with nice people.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of your life hours at work.
Yeah. And
with your colleagues, with clients, with suppliers. We just want to have a nice working life.
So you do want the love you, speak soon.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. But we're joking now, right? But when we talk about it a lot, empathy. When you were on the show, Kelvin, you talked about empathy. You're talking about working with good people. And you can all remember those projects where you're working with someone who you think, oh, they're great. I enjoy that. And actually you're working better. We were talking about trust and contracts, Sarah. This isn't news to you, this conversation, listening to Kelvin and Mike flirt with one another. But you've been involved in disputes, right? How poor is trust in construction, and what are you agreeing with Mike saying pick up the phone and build a relationship?
Yeah. It's all about relationships. I remember doing a talk to on our SES thing. We were talking about letters of intent, which was the subject of my first book. And somebody said, well, what do I do if I don't trust the other side? I said, well, it doesn't matter what you write in your letter of intent. You should be walking away. If you don't trust them, don't waste your energy, your empathy, your life, and your business on a company you don't trust. Just don't do it. I ended up getting, so Stephen Covey, who wrote a book, Speed of Trust, I ended up in a conversation with one of his companies, and it was a construction company in Canada, who decided that they would put trust first and foremost in all their relationships. And they said for the first 18 months, it was tricky, but then they got it and they've made more money and they built stronger relationships by putting trust first and center. And they refuse, and they would turn around and say, we're not interested in this sort of relationship that this contract represents. This is a master servant. We're not doing it. Either get a life or get out of my life. We're just not going to do it.
But how did they do that?
Because they made it really clear that they weren't going to tender on anything where there was no trust in the contract. And I can read a contract and think you should not sign this. And I would do contract reviews all the time. And I say, if you don't get these 4 things taken out of this contract, do not sign it. If you then choose to sign it, I'm kind of out at that point. But if there's no trust and there's no relationship that looks like it's at least vaguely parity, don't get involved. That's a commercial decision if you want to get involved, but I'm telling you shouldn't be getting involved. And that requires courage. It requires balls. It requires, going out and getting work that you do want to do. And that's difficult because it's kind of comfy just to take the shit sometimes, because we've got employees, we've got people to pay, we've got things to do. We want to be busy. Most people don't go into construction because they want to hang around an office waiting for the next job to come in. They want to be doing it. So, I think we just have to be able to turn around and say, this is not the way I want to do business.
I agree with you. That's the end of the conversation now. We've nailed it. But I always come back to this. It just feels easier easier said than done. That's why these conversations are good. I feel like we're broadening that perspective, but still I feel like as a subby, more often than not, you're 6 months out from no projects or whatever it is, and you need to fill the order book. So there's the constant challenge between filling your order book and signing a contract that you don't want to. And it sounds
Yeah, but
like
if you sign a contract that's going to take your business down, that's not a solution. And this is the problem. Too many people sign contracts that if it went badly, it would take their business down.
Yeah.
And it does. And it repeatedly takes their business down. Well, not repeatedly, because, but, I say to some, you can sign this contract if you want to, but you've got 250 employees. What are you going to say to them when it all goes wrong? Because this contract has got going badly wrong all over it.
Yeah.
This is really, though, all about setting your stall out at the beginning of your business. Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
If you just fall from sight into running a small contractor and you haven't thought about where you want to be and who you want to work for and what you want to do, where the fuck are you going anyway? You're going to sign up to things that are shit. You're going to end up out of business. One of the things that really struck me when ISG went bust, read a thing on LinkedIn. Someone was saying to them, to this particular specialist who had gone bust or was in the middle of going bust, don't you have trade credit insurance? And the answer was, we couldn't get it on ISG. No fucking shit, because it's been insolvent for 3 years, you idiot. Why have you been working for them, knowing that business is essentially insolvent? And the answer would be, well, we've got to feed the kids, we've got to work. So, yeah, but you're not. You're not feeding anybody. You've chosen to do that. It's like the old mice and the cheese story. You have to continue to look for new avenues of work in that area of the strategy that you're putting forward as to where you want to be. So we set out to do a lot in food retail, in financial services, in pharmaceuticals, and a number of other sectors, because it's not rocket science, because they are rich sectors. Because generally speaking, those sectors maintain even through economic hard times. So in COVID, we were still building Aldi stores in the middle of COVID. And if anything, our life was easier because we didn't have any other trades around us, really. We got given a steel frame and we were banging panels and roofs on left, right and centre. We did dozens of Aldi stores in COVID. So this is the subby specialist, rather, is so guilty of throwing their hands up and complaining when they are in charge of their own destiny as well. Choose who you want to work with. Choose who you want to go after. Set your salespeople, or you yourself, if it's you, it's a really small firm. Choose who you want to work with.
Yeah. I was going to ask, because we do need to get to some Q&A at some point, but I was going to ask, like, each of you individually, what's the one change you would make for 2026 from each of your perspectives? So you've kind of just you've nailed that there in terms of like business planning as a subcontracting sector, like actually having foresight about who you want to go out to, how you're going to approach business from day one, as opposed to just kind of falling into it in some ways, as so often is the case. So just from your perspective, right, what's the one thing you want to see change in 2026? Just one.
From an industry perspective, it's the thing that I started with. It's time. It's giving time to the people that are going to build your project the opportunity to help you build it appropriately and to the right level of money and to the right level of competence.
Very simple. Okay. And Sarah?
So I'm going to say, understand the cost of the way you do business now, because that will make you want to do things more simply.
Well, and what do you mean by that? Just to expand
project
on it.
Inefficiency costs, legal disputes, higher pricing because you haven't got a balanced contract. Actually understand the cost of the way we're doing business at the moment, because you can double your profit margin if you get better contracts.
Kelvin?
The mice and the cheese, Mike. Was that an analogy about the mice when he churned the milk into butter?
No.
What was it?
It's one where there are two mice.
Yeah.
The first mouse keeps going to the same place in the corner of the room, because he always finds cheese there. Every time you go, he just eats the cheese, takes it back to his family, and eats the cheese. The other mouse is going to all around the room looking for different places for cheese, because one day the first mouse goes to the corner and there's no cheese. So he dies. His family. Well, it's that story. But that's just gone elsewhere. It's still working.
No, it's my fault. I asked the question. I'm enlightened. Fascinating. No, I thought I had to do with the churning the butter, but no, I was totally way off. What we want to change next year, just before we do that, I think your point that you made, what's your name, sorry? Loretta, your point that you made about feedback, it's funny, you were at the Meet the Buyer Day. So Guildmore ran a Meet the Buyer Day a couple of months back, and there was about 150 of our supply chain in the room. And one of the questions we asked was almost a carbon copy of what you asked about feedback. So, and I'd be interested to know, actually, this gentleman over here, you work for a main contractor. I'd be interested to know how you deal with it. But one of the answer to your question, what are you going to do to make procurement better in 2026? For us, it's giving feedback to the tenderers. We've already implemented it. So now if you price for us and the approval pack comes to me and I sign it off, and let's say we have 3 prices and I'm going with Mike's firm and there's 2 other firms, roofer number 1 and roofer number 2. We now have a system in place in Guildmore, which we just put in recently because of that exact question, which says, have you given feedback to the supplier? Yes or no? And if it's no, I don't sign it off.
And from you, Chris?
I was going to say document dumping, but I've already said that. So I'm going to plug C-Link.
I think, place to end, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think QS is being armed with more tools to be more efficient and actually kind of lean into what you're just saying there about being able to give feedback, speak to the subcontractors, build those relationships. Are they allowed to go to the rugby or not? I wasn't sure. Or just not Marbella. Okay, yeah. So allow the QSs to go to more rugby games with their supply chain. Jokes aside, but yeah, building more relationships with the suppliers and the clients, so you got more people to work with and more people to work for. So, yeah, excellent.
I think we will go to Q&A if anybody has any questions, Mel.
I don't know.
I'm joking. Another question, come on.
Didn't know I'd be so inspired by procurement. Honestly, I'm all G'd up.
Eat that cheese.
I churn the butter. Yeah. So I am fairly new into the profession. I'm on an apprenticeship scheme. So what would you say the best thing an early career PQS could do that would help push the needle in terms of creating a fairer procurement environment if you're working within either private or public?
So, I was going to say, get trained in understanding contracts. I do a lot of contract training. I've worked with undergraduates, masters, and in companies. And the number of people who get to the end of it and go, I did not realise that was part of my job. I didn't realise that's what the law said. I didn't realise that's what that contract meant. So they were basically working in the dark.
Yeah.
So really important, get trained. Yeah.
I would say go and get some main contract experience as well. Honestly, it will pay you dividends. There's a PQS or ex-PQS in the room, looking at him now at the back of the room, who he worked on a project and he was amazing PQS to work with because he got it and he'd had that experience. So when change management happened, it was more of a process we went through. We agreed it. It was much more straightforward. Sadly, he left halfway through the project and dumped me with someone who doesn't have a clue. And it was a minefield and really hard to kind of push the account forward and get it agreed to fine account. So I think getting main contract experience is a big,
It's a great idea.
yeah, huge benefit.
See if I pass my APC first.
Don't need it.
Oh no, don't say that. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Just a final thing for you there, Laura. From a specialist perspective, we work with PQSs through our supermarket work, generally speaking, so we actually work with a lot of them. And the most successful relationships we have are where that person has not an understanding of what we do day to day, because that's irrelevant, right? You don't need to know that. It's a good understanding about the process and where we are in the process versus, in line with other trades and what's happening. Is the ground worker holding up our bit? Are the lads on site falling out? And if you're on site and you'll get to a point where you will see that happening in front of you. You'll just be able to see it. And then when you get back to the office, it's a case of, okay, this fairness element of actually, yeah, I will pay these guys that application because, or do you know what? They're taking the piss here because it's coming up to summer. They've over applied by 20%. I've done my own measure and they're taking the piss. So no, I'm going to pull that back. And they will respect you more for doing that. But you can also go the other way when you need to. So again, it still echoes the relationship point, but it's that understanding of trust. It's like you become the arbiter of it, essentially.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I'll write it down before I came. Do you want the mic? No, it's all right. So with platforms like Ceiling progressively revolutionising commercial construction, does your organisation plan to create a comprehensive all-in-one solution to lead the market, given unique capabilities of tools like Procure, Easy Build, Fast Draft, now with Power BI integrated? Are you planning to combine it all into one eventually?
We've been on this digitalization journey for a long time. The thing that we cannot find that doesn't exist is the full ERP that does everything. So you've got Procore that does certain things well and certain things really badly. You've got Easy Build, which is just fucking awful, but we won't go. Easy Build is just a waste of time. We are using AI tools in finance, but for very specific things. So for accounts payable, for instance, we have an AI bot that when you send an invoice to our particular email address for accounts, it will push it to whichever person created the PO for approval. It's essentially, we get thousands and thousands of invoices, so it means that we never need to employ any more AP people. It's a very specific tool. We're using FieldWire for site-based stuff, and we have a different CRM entirely. There is nothing around. So now Paul's had his thinking time. I would love it if they created a full ERP that actually did all of it: estimating, contract project management, financial, etc., etc.
I have had some time to think there, but I might also palm this off on Chris. Yeah, cheers, mate. So right now there is nothing that will do the A to Z, right? There isn't anything. And what we are trying to build is, and this is with our QS hat on, I will get to Mel and our estimating hat on shortly, but we're trying to build a system that basically allows from start to finish of what a QS would do on a job. So whether that is pre-qualify a subcontractor, tender, receive quotes, send contracts, do your tender analysis, actually, go out and actually administrate that subcontract as well, and then also administer your main contract. So actually everything that a QS does kind of captured in one place, and that then all of a sudden creates a huge amount of audit trail data, all that good stuff. We're also now in a full-time relationship with our Australian friends E1, who have exactly the same vision for estimating. So the idea being effectively for our platforms to be totally integrated so that you have the estimating and pre-construction connected to the procurement, connected to the administration and finance all the way through, right? But I guess, that in itself is like a huge amount of work. And if we were talking about like the A to Z of construction technology, I would say estimating and quantity surveying maybe captures, A to G, for instance. I know that's a poor analogy, but there's finance, there's document control, etc., which gets you all the way to A to Z. So our ambition is to effectively make the entire commercial process captured in a single place, and then to integrate with your larger ERPs and your larger CDEs, so that effectively we're speaking to one of the largest tier one contractors in the UK, and they showed us just their procurement portfolio, and it had, I think, 12 items in their tech stack. So they're using 12 bits of software through the process, where you could actually be potentially using one, and it's reporting to your two other. It's pulling information from your document control and it's sending information to your ERP. So I think we're still quite a way away as an industry from the single ERP that does absolutely everything. I think you're going to have a tech stack which allows you to kind of should be talking to each other. At the moment they're not, generally speaking, but it should be 2 or 3 places that you as a business are kind of logging into. I don't know, Chris, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think our vision is if it's got pound notes on it, we want to be controlling it. It's like the global vision of where we want to be.
He's never used that line before. It's quite a good one, isn't it?
And, it all starts with the estimating, if you think about that. So we've got E1 and C-Link are our partners. We've merged. And at the front end, they're doing a lot of work, getting prices in, the tenders. There's a lot of value in data there that's so valuable. That getting transferred through to, delivery, the QSs, and them administering it. So sadly, we'd all retender because we like to waste people's time in the industry, but we'll do a lot of retendering. We'll then be procuring. We'll then have change management, orders placed, etc., final accounts. Those data points are so valuable for the industry. And the reason why we get cost planning so wrong, sorry, PQS is out there, but we do, is because the information isn't there for you to effectively analyze and forecast ahead. What are the changes? What are the lead time changes? All these things. If it's got pound notes on it, we want to have sight on it. We want to control it. And yeah, that's our global vision.
There you go. Great question. Oh, we have another question.
Yeah, I was just on that point that we just mentioned about PQS. It's just, what you say, the long-term vision for Sealing. Is that something to sort of gear towards, as you say, the consultancy side as well, from the PQS side of things also?
Yeah, so Chris's background is that he's a subcontractor and a main contractor. My background is I'm a subcontractor. I'm probably bored of saying it, but we're very much focused on effectively changing the workflows for contractors, right? That's because that's our experience, that's our bread and butter. That's what we know. But effectively, the workflow for a PQS to a main contractor, and we are talking with quite a few PQSs. We do have PQSs using the platform. Is that if a main contractor and a subcontractor is 100%, we probably, like, the difference for a PQS to a main contractor is like 70 to 80% is what we cover on the current workflow. There are different things that need to happen for analysing main contract quotes. So the vision is there to do it. We are very much focused on still the subcontract main contract relationship at the moment.
When I went over to Paul just before, I was asking what the Hilti ERP is because I couldn't remember the name of it. It's called 4PS. We've done a big exercise with all the major ones, whether it's Procore, 4PS, all of them, and we decided that 4PS was probably the right one for us. So it's something that we haven't pushed the green button on it yet, but we're very close to, because there is an open API with FieldWire, a number of other things. Because at the moment we use a piece of software. It's called Equi2, it's called Construction Manager, which is all right, but we're at the point where it's kind of creaking on us. We're right at the top of its capability, but we ideally want a dynamic solution because we want dynamics for our CRM, because our CRM is an off-the-shelf thing. Again, we want more designability, but we still see big firms that are still doing things on spreadsheet. It's just mind-boggling that. And we should all be on this journey of full digitization.
It goes back to what I was saying at the start about procurement is pretty broken. If you were to articulate to anyone who was not in construction that everyone's frustrated about, the HS2s, and we have all of these stories about how poorly construction performs, and all the while, all of the tier ones are procuring on emails, spreadsheets. Like, other industries would laugh at us. If anyone knew what we were doing, they would realise how insane it is and how we are all kind of set up for failure on projects. So I don't know what even the question is, but digitise is my answer.
Mike, does your business use C-Link? No? If, I guess that's the point, Chris. So what would the benefits be for C-Link?
So the benefit is, so a subcontractor, let's just go back to that Dropbox link that you're receiving day in, day out and getting really frustrated. C-Link standardizes that tender process for you. So you're getting clear instructions from the QS on what you're asking to price. Here's a detailed scope of works that we've laid out for you. Here's all the documentation that's relevant for it in that format that you can digest and process far more easily than you can do the Dropbox link. So from a start out, that is just a much better process. And then and trade relevant as well, because you've received them, haven't you? Many of them. So yeah. So I mean, Luke's feedback is like a lot. I get that a lot. We're saying I'll always price a C-Link tender because I know what I need to price. It's clear.
Is there any other questions?
It's a bit raw, but it's just how I feel about the industry at the moment and my experiences today. So it's the second question. So with the construction industry facing a QS skills crisis, our leaders and institutions, I'm talking about RICS, MCIB, etc., they're failing us by allowing easily purchased qualifications and meaningless chartships, producing graduates and postgraduates unable to analyse tenders, understand leadership psychology, strategise and build relationships. Our misaligned courses and bums on seats approach degrading the QS role, have we fallen into the trap of the lawyers, basically, you know.
Who said the charterships were meaningless?
I'm not saying completely meaningless. I'm saying in terms of, let's say, procurement, for instance. I've been at so many different companies where people procure differently, and you're thinking there's no people at university, they're not taught a standardised way of procuring something. Everyone's got their own approach, and do you know what I mean? It should be a standardised way that's backed by people who've been through it. They've experienced certain things in the industry. You know, that's where I'm coming from. Yeah, there's no standardised approach.
I mean, I do personally, and this is because I was a subby, I didn't see any value in getting chartered whatsoever because it kind of gave me nothing in my career. It wasn't required. It wasn't needed. I wasn't at the time going to be traveling abroad or so on. But definitely, I think at consultant level, it's much more relevant. I don't know. I don't really. It's a tough question to answer. I don't really know.
I quite liked your point though, Nav, about the getting trained on how to put a tender pack together and how to procure a contractor or a subcontractor is essential. And I was never taught it. I just winged it for decades, and just learned.
It's very true, isn't it?
Yeah, just learned along the way and made a few mistakes, and then learned time and time again. But we never told how to structure a tender, how much time to give. It's just speak to your colleague next to you and it's like, yeah, do this. And it's just there.
Yeah, it's true. There wasn't any practical like this is what you're going to be doing. This is the workflow of the QS and this is what you need to do at different steps. So it could definitely be better, couldn't it?
I agree. Any more questions?
Yeah. Was there one other question, did I see?
I'll throw one out there.
Go on.
So, Rob from BFT Mastermind, I'm looking to get inside the head of a junior aspiring QS and find out.
It's a dark place.
So, and I'm not going to use the word subcontractor because I think I've already learned tonight that actually we really need to be talking to ourselves as specialists. So I think that's a really, really important mindset change. And going back to that word change, it's about how quickly we know we're not going to change it quickly. So I'll try and do the question quickly. I'm currently doing it. This week, for example, big tier one developer. I've listened to their MD. I've listened to their you name it. Everyone talking quality. Everyone talking safety. Everyone talking you name all those buzzwords. Okay. Yet this afternoon, before I came here, I was in a kind of pre-tender meeting, getting close to closing it out. QS, led that team call. Price. And then when we kind of sort of said, well, that we know the other couple of subcontractors that we're up against, they're not approved suppliers on your supply chain. I found that out, I know that's the case. Senior QS, who we hadn't met in the process up until this point, then pipes in, jokingly, wittingly, this is done on price roll. Period, full stop. So I guess the question is in there from both the contractor and from yourself, Mike, of how do you demonstrate, the value? And I appreciate that you're in a big boy place that you can just turn and say, walk away. Really easy, but especially, I guess, in my industry, high-rise buildings not being built, the race to the bottom, contractors taking advantage of that. But from your side as well, from the main contractor side, it's kind of like, how do you encourage a QS to kind of stick to their morals, have the integrity, and say, no, let's stay inside our preferred supply chain. There's a reason, we've done the audit, we know the quality, we know the safety, we know those bits are in place. Have the confidence to stand up, complete the form you need to complete, to say, I'm not going for the cheapest package. This one's 10 grand more on a 200 grand package, but I'm choosing it because they're going to complete on time, they're going to do as they say they're going to do, and they're qualified and competent to do it.
Wow, there's a lot in that.
Sorry.
Were you at my Meet the Buyer day?
I was at your Meet the Buyer.
Yes, I knew you were. How are you? It's lovely to see you again. What an absolute pleasure. And I'm so glad you didn't ask me that question that day. When it gets to the QS, it's about price, right? And that's the sad, cold truth of it. We're using C-Link now. And we are only tendering to supply chain partners who are already PQQ'd on C-Link. So we already know, we've done a credit check on them. We've checked their SSIP, CHAS, EXOR construction line. We've looked at them. So we know that they're bona fide. So that's one thing. But if you were to ask me how many times in the last 12 months have I had a recommendation come to me for sign off whereby it wasn't the lowest price, I can probably remember 2. And bear in mind, last year we turned over 72 million. That's a lot of approvals. So what you're really talking about there is the old acronym MEAT, which is most economically advantageous tender. And when we as main contractors price upstream, like I said at the very top of the show tonight, there'll be a weighting. It's now 40% price I've seen this week, sometimes 60% price, more often than not 70% price. It doesn't work like that when between a main contractor and a subcontractor. There's no qualitative response. Yes, we want to see an understanding of your RAMs and your MARs, and I come in and have a meeting with us and tell us how to build a job, but you don't have to do a written response to a main contractor talking about ESG and how you're managing nets, your carbon reduction and that kind of stuff. It comes down to price predominant.
Is there not once bitten twice shy when you buy cheap, and then that particular company then makes it all up on variations and behaviours?
Once. It happens every year. Yeah. Happens all the time. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I don't own the business, right? So we've got a CEO, and the man sitting to your left at the moment, well, he doesn't own the business either, but Dan is a business unit director, and he runs the Planned Works business unit for us. So they do retrofit and decarb and fire remedial works. He's got a P&L that he must run. Right, Mike's got a P&L that he has to run, but he owns the firm. He's one of the shareholders, and often the CEO or the COO, let's have it right. They want to ensure that the margin is maintained in the business unit, in the contract, in that project, and in the group. So it's a really tricky one. If there was enough money, look, this is the answer. Right? If there's enough money sloshing around in a job, it makes life easier for everyone. I can choose you because I know you're better than him and, you're more expensive if the money is there. If the money isn't there and we're squeezed from the top down, Dan's going to say, Kelvin, I can't go. What's your name?
Rob.
I can't go with Rob. He's the best in the business at. What do you do?
Mast climbing, access.
Best at mast climbers. No one out there better at mast climbers than Rob, but we can't go with him because we don't have the budget. So I think it comes down to, that. I'm sure we had a similar conversation though afterwards at the Meet the Buyer.
Shane's about asking similar questions and keep getting things talked about. It's quite possible.
Yeah, no, you've changed the shirt, but the questions are the same. That was it. Now I have you.
I think, Rob, there's a cold hard truth there as well. It's more than price, and it's lots of QSs get bonuses on the back of what they save before the project, during the project, after the project. So there's that in the mix as well. Perhaps not with Guildmore, but there are lots of main contractors that do work on that basis, and they will.
Margin is the KPI.
The QS will go for the cheapest. Well, if they can get that over the line and that, I'll get my big bonus, etc. I'll tell you what we do in that situation. We try very hard at the beginning to build a moat around us, for want of a better term, either via evidence of competency, accreditation, qualification, experience. So with our defence stuff, for example, we say we've got 150 guys that have base clearance security. We've got 8 of us, including me, that have got the level above that, sensitive clearance security. So we're ticking those boxes already before we even actually get to the price point. And we've generally been engaged with the senior management of that firm, particularly if it's in defence. And we've got them bought into the way we do things. So one of our big USPs is working with sensitive buildings, whether it's a supermarket or an explosives ordnance factory or something like that. So we do it that way.
So I suppose just from that point, does that sometimes probably get it? Does that probably need buy-in from, as you say, the commercials talking to your operations side of things as well, your PMs getting their thoughts on, obviously, as you say, looking at the price also, just to say, okay, here's the contractor that's come in. What do you kind of think from what they're presenting in terms of like from methodology or program? Does it kind of?
Yeah, methodology is the interesting one there. And we do quite well against our competitors by explaining how we're going to do it. We just won a big job recently. It was a £2.5 million contract because we suggested a different scaffold setup, which was going to save them about 350 grand. And we were the only firm that came up with that. And what that did was it cemented our competence in that. So we then became the preferred bidder. And a number of months later, we got the contract over the line.
Excellent, guys. Is there any other questions, or does anybody want to go and get a drink? That wasn't a leading question.
Can I just say I bought one of each of the books that I've written. If anyone wants to know about how you can write contracts in 500 words or understand more about the legal basis on which contracts are written, just grab one because I don't want to take them home.
There you go. Thank you very much, guys, and thank you to everyone on the panel.